You know what they say, when a comic book order is too good to be true, it usually is. Unless it's from Pittsburgh. Hey there, today I have an unboxing video, and in this video I'm going to open up an order of comic books that I placed on Atomic Avenue. I purchased this from a seller that I had not bought comics from before, and I am very curious to see how this order of books turned out here, and can't wait to share the books that I got with you. I talk a lot on this channel about making sure that you understand who you're buying from. If you're going to take a risk and buy comics sight unseen, make sure it's from a reputable dealer or seller that you trust or have some sort of relationship or history with. But in order to get to that point, you have to start somewhere. And Atomic Avenue will typically have new sellers pop up from time to time. I tried selling on the platform for a little while and then I disappeared. So sellers will come and go, and then there's some other veteran sellers on the platform that I have history with and statistics and analysis on the types of comic books that they send out, and the grades that I can expect, kind of the quality of the books that you could expect to get from Atomic Avenue from those sellers, because they don't have scans of any of the items. So you're buying everything just based advertised kind of stock image, the metadata for the comic, and the price, and then whatever condition the seller says the book is in. Now, I chose to take a chance on this seller for a couple of reasons. Number one, he had books for sale that are just, I say right in my wheelhouse. There's a lot of comic books. I think my wheelhouse is pretty large, so it's not really saying very much there, but there was a specific run of a character that I just couldn't pass up as I was going through the title. You can search in a number of ways on Atomic Avenue. You can just search by keyword, by title, and then you can also look at the seller's individual books, and it's broken up by series. So as I was kind of going through the inventory of what the seller had for sale, I stopped at this particular series and started looking at the books in those series and was like, no way, these great covers that I've collected over the years, and really felt like it was a good opportunity to pick them up again, take a chance on this new seller. And secondly, as they were listed in near mint condition, which is my target grade, the header string, the text near mint, and I do that and say it that way because everybody's definition of near mint is different. If somebody challenges me on my definition, it's 9.4. But if I challenge someone else, it's like, oh, in the ballpark, somewhere in the 8 to 9. So I always find the whole definition of near mint to be an interesting one that is an ongoing theme of my channel here. But nevertheless, they had books. I loved the specific books that I saw. They were listed in near mint condition, and I knew through my analysis that if for some reason they didn't pan out to be quote unquote near mint or in the range of 9.4, then based on the numbers that I had, still great books to own with low risk on my part. So let's get to the unboxing. I want to show you the books that I picked up from this seller. And then if you stay to the end of the video, I'll show you what I paid for the books to see if I was able to add any value to my collection. So now on to the unboxing. Okay, here is the package I received from the seller M. Ying on Atomic Avenue. It came from Yingling in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I was hoping it was from the brewery, but I noticed that the shipment came from Mark and not Dick Yingling, so it's not from the brewery. I was a little disappointed, although I don't know if I want my comics smelling like a brewery or not, but nevertheless, came all the way from Pittsburgh. I do talk about shipping a lot, and was not able to unlock free shipping with this order, but this was kind of a reverse situation where Atomic Avenue usually overcharges sellers for shipping. And in this case, I was charged less. I was charged $12.75 for this shipment, and you can see here that the seller paid $17.10 to ship this priority to me. Now, the other thing I'm a little worried about is it's a little bit taller than I would expect for the number of comics that are inside here. I hope that they are not laid diagonally. Maybe they watched my video opening comic books from Midtown and thought it would be a good idea to lay them diagonally. My fingers are crossed. I'm hopeful that it worked out. But the box is a medium flat rate box, but it's not even flat. It's the taller version. Anyway, got to open this up and see how these books were packed. All right, just wanted to pause for a second and show you. Books are just laying in here. There was, oh boy, great book on the top. Love it. It's like I mentioned at the beginning, this Wolverine 27 Jim Lee cover. Love that book. Just absolutely love it. But you could see the books were just kind of thrown in. It does have some of this more traditional bubble wrap, the packing wrap, but it was just like, yep, these are the books the guy ordered. Let me lay some bubble wrap down, throw it in there. What ends up happening is the books are just going to jump around and shift. So I hope that the bags and boards protected them, but hey, at least there's no Scotch tape, right? All right, get this out of the way, and we can definitely start with the book on top, which is Wolverine number 27. For those tracking key comic books, this one is listed as an iconic cover. I think all great covers are iconic, or they're not. But this was specifically kind of targeted because not only is it an amazing kind of solo Jim Lee Wolverine cover, I know they used this artwork on a number of different things. I even think this was used for a video game. But I wanted to take a shot at it. Listed as near mint. It definitely has a little bit of a stacking crease. It just has some general creasing all over the place, and this is kind of what I was speculating on. Is I was hoping that we wouldn't get a ton of color breaks, but they could be candidates for pressing, and I think this is the case. This corner looks a little rough here at the top and has some spine splitting there just slightly. So, it could end up being maybe a 9.4 or 9.6 candidate. I'll have to check out the back cover as well. But Wolverine 27, and maybe Jim Lee was inspired by a previous cover by John Byrne. And that's right, it's the cover for Wolverine 17 done by Byrne. And similar to Lee's cover here, 10 issues earlier, just a striking, solid red color background. And I don't know if this is another iconic cover or if this is a classic cover. I'm not really sure what everyone specifically categorizes this one, but I love it. And just checking it out through the bag and board, again, there's just some dimpling and some general creasing. I feel like a quick press probably would be able to address a lot of these. Same thing though, a little bit of a corner issue at the top that could prevent it from getting the 9.8. And then down here, just some general corner soft. Now, I will say that just looking at the bag and board in general, I don't see any damage that could have been caused by the books shifting around. While it's very possible, everything looks to be pretty sturdy as far as the bag and board is concerned. They can slide around in the bag and board still, where I can show you there. It's at the bottom, and there it's been shifted. And that has to do with the type of, but this is really that old, thick, filmy bag and board. So I can't wait to get this into the Silver Age bags and boards that I keep my books in. All right, another book that I always love, can't pass up. I mean, it's got foil on it, so you have to buy it, is Spider-Man 2099, number 1, the first appearance and origin of Spider-Man 2099. This one is probably not near mint. Looks like there is a problem with this bottom corner here. So that's a shame. I might be able to pull it over. No, I think that's torn. I'm not sure. So this could be like maybe a 9 or 9.2 if there's nothing else wrong with it. But I have the hardest time trying to find a 9.8 candidate. This is probably my 4th copy of Spider-Man 2099. And the highest grade I was able to ever get for it is 9.4. But I still picked it up anyway. I thought it was worth taking a chance on. But I'm already seeing some consistency here with the first 3 books, just general corner softening. Spine looks pretty decent, though. I don't really see anything, although this is kind of not necessarily a cardstock per se, but it is a bit of a thicker cover, so it prevents the typical color-breaking spine ticks more than your traditional books. Speaking of spine ticks, here we go. This is Uncanny X-Men 251. Awesome cover by Mark Silvestri with the purple and lime green color scheme, but I can already see color breaking ticks up and down here. And, again, what would I do? Would I contact the seller and say, hey, these books aren't near mint. They're really more of like a 9.2. You just get laughed at. You're just like, yep, that's your call. I say they're near mint, but a professional grader would not grade that book near mint. That probably maxes at a 9, maybe 9.2 on a good day. And it's just kind of the way it is. So again, just taking the chance, trying to understand what I buy from the seller again, who knows, but let's just continue on. X-Men 268, absolutely gorgeous Jim Lee cover featuring Captain America, Black Widow, and Wolverine. And this is kind of a look back to these three characters knowing each other during World War II and kind of the origin of Captain America and Wolverine meeting. So there's some significance in the story, even more significance, I think, where this cover has been homaged several times. Awesome artwork by Jim Lee. This one's really terribly miswrapped. So I don't particularly like those types of books. I think it just takes away from the eye appeal, the presentation, a really nasty color breaking tick right in there. So not really sure. Again, same thing, just issues with the corners, possibly a little bit of either color rubbing. That corner looks pretty sharp though. Definitely needs a press just to kind of make it a little bit crispy. Down there is not too bad. Well, could be creased just slightly. Just a lot of minor imperfections that I could see it going from a 9 to a 9.2 if it were pressed, but probably, again, not a 9.8 candidate, may not even be a 9.4 candidate, maybe, but still a great book nonetheless. Love picking that one up. Next is Uncanny X-Men 282, and I can already tell this is not the book I ordered, and it should be pretty obvious because of the gold cover. The gold cover, very simply, is the second print, and I ordered the first print. The second print is not even at 9.8 anyway. There's at least 4 or 5 color breaking ticks that I can see. Otherwise, it looks to be okay. Probably, again, just guessing in the realm of a 9, possibly a 9.2, but not the book I ordered. So I will contact the seller about this one and let him know that he sent me the second print and not the first print and see what he wants to do. Now, the last book is, I think you could say, kind of the primary book. It was the first book that I saw the seller had in stock. And what I end up doing is when I find one book and I know I want to place an order, instead of just placing the order for that one book, I'll start to build out an order and try and find some other good books to build the order around. Those were all awesome books. I love all of them. And you could make the argument, well, maybe except for the second print of 282, but if it was the first print that you were kind of building an order around any of those books, they're all awesome. And I'm very happy and fortunate to have those in my collection. But this book I've been after for quite some time, and I paid a little bit extra for it because if it truly is in near mint, then I felt like the price that the seller had it for made it worthwhile. And the book that I picked up is Wolverine number 8. And this is the classic, iconic, whatever kind of cover you want to talk about it, by John Buscema, featuring Wolverine as Patch and Hulk as Joe Fixit. Now, this book is particularly tough with this all blue background. It tends to get beat up a little bit. It's a popular book, and just looking at it very quickly, it's not a 9.8. It was worth the risk of picking it up, like I said. And this one I'm going to take out of the bag and board because I think it's important to take a little bit of a closer look to see the type of book that you could expect to get from this seller if you're ordering something in near mint. So here we have the same problem with the corner, just some slight blunting and softening right there, just on the edge, but not too bad. I would say it's borderline for a 9.8 candidate. So if I'm grading this book, there's a little bit of an issue right here in the cover that could come out with a press, but you have to start saying, well, that's already probably moving it into a 9.6. Same thing right in here, just some light creasings, but not too bad right there. So still a 9.6, I would say. Very, very slight stacking crease, but the book looks pristine up until about right here, just above the staple. There's a couple of just hairline ticks right in here. But then right here is where we get the first nasty color break that's already pushing it into a 9.4. And then some more issues down here, another color breaking tick. Hairline, difficult to pick up right there. There's the other one. So between these two, the one in the middle, a little bit of a tearing on the staple. I'm already looking at maxing at a 9.4. Back cover, again, suffers from some just little bit of almost like a fingernail. It got in there, stacking crease. So this could end up being a 9.4. I feel like it probably maxes 9.2. Back cover art by Rob Liefeld. This kind of exposes the bottom corner, just general rounding down there. So I think, I mean, you tell me, leave me a comment, let me know what you think about it. I found something else here, slight tiny dog ear right there. I think it just breaks color as well. Maybe not, maybe that could come out in a press. But I feel like it's probably as is 9.0, could be improved to 9.2. I would say. Nice colors, though. I think all the books, however they were stored by the seller, I think they're really, really nice in terms of the preservation of the original colors. Everything looks really, really bright in that regard. But were any of these books near mint? I mean, maybe, maybe close, in somewhere in like an 8.5 to 9.4. But when I'm ordering near mint, I'm not expecting 8.5 to 9.4. I'm expecting it just to be a little bit higher in the 9.2 to 9.6 range. I get it. With near mint, you are allowed to have some defects in the books, and certainly these books have defects. But let me show you what I paid for them, and then you can see why I took a chance on these books, even if they didn't come in at 9.4, because of the fair market values, the cost, and then the potential if I were to get these books cleaned, pressed, and graded. So let's go over those numbers in the order summary. All right, here is that order that I placed with Atomic Avenue on November 16th, 2023. I was invoiced $135.25, and you can see I paid $12.75 for shipping. And so what I've done here in column Z is in showing the total cost, I distribute the $12.75 across the 7 books in this order so that I can truly track my door-to-door cost to acquire the book. Now I've got the cover price fair market value here in column U, and if you're starting to eyeball the actual column here, the total costs, and you're kind of looking to see, okay, did I get any deals? I've summarized this for you here in column AA, which is the raw value add that is hopefully positive. And in this case, even if I keep all of these books raw, I don't get them professionally graded, and consider them all near mint, then I would stand to gain about $51.75, which, as I mentioned, this is why I placed the order, as I thought that the books were underpriced for the advertised grade. There were other books listed in near mint, in the near mint category, which doesn't mean they're in near mint, but that's what it literally is, just spelled out, near mint. And they were selling for more than what I paid for these books. So I thought it was worth picking them up. And I really didn't have to do much analysis. They pretty much just jumped right off the screen and into my shopping cart. Now, over half of that value add is coming from Wolverine number 8, a $64 raw book according to cover price. And I paid $35.82 to acquire that book, which I thought was a really, really nice deal. And again, it's risk reward. I wanted to risk it in case it did come back and it was in that 9.6, 9.8 range. Then I feel like I really would have scored, but just in case it doesn't, I still feel like I'm making a wise purchase, getting that book for $35 when it probably has a realistic fair market value of about 50 to 60 bucks. So I thought it was worth picking up. I've always wanted that book and happy to add it. Now, when I do look at these raw books, what I'm also trying to do is I'm looking at what is the potential if I were to get them professionally graded, because I don't know if I'm going to keep these books raw forever. I do enjoy sending books to CGC. And so what would happen if I just blindly sent all of these books off, and because they're near mint, I can just assume they'll all get 9.4s, right? So if I switch the grades here to 9.4s, then we'll see the CGC fair market value of these books here in column V come in, and we can see that if I were to do that, even after all of the grading fees, the shipping costs, and all of that, I would still be able to essentially break even, but add $8 of value to my collection here in column AB, the CGC value of a 9.4. Again, carried by that Wolverine 8 in a 9.4 that is currently valued at $114, which would add potentially $28.18 to my collection for a positive potential value add of $46. Now, X-Men 282, I spent $16.32 hoping that it was above a 9.4. In a 9.4, it's worth $30, so I would have lost $7.32 after grading fees and everything else there. Another loss here with X-Men 251. I paid $18.82 in a CGC 9.4. It is only worth $30. Spider-Man 2099 number 1 is interesting. In a 9.4, it's worth $57. And I should know that's around what I sold mine for. I think I sold mine for around $55 and only paid $12.82 for that book. So I feel like it was a good buy. That corner looks torn to me, so I don't know if it really would be a 9.4. I feel like it's probably closer to a 9. Might eke out a 9.2, but I don't feel like that's a book that I would send in for professional grading. But if it did somehow magically get a 9.4, that's an $11 positive value add. So this is a lot of like speculation on the grades, and the biggest speculation that I'd love to do, I don't believe any of these books are 9.8s, but if they were, it's kind of fun to see, why did I buy these books? What was the potential that this order had if all of them were to be a 9.8? And you can see these comics have a 9.8 fair market value of over $1,000 at $1,039. I think the shocker for me is looking at X-Men 268 at 289 versus Wolverine 8 296. If you asked me blindly which book out of the two is worth more in a slab 9.8, I would say Wolverine 8 has to be, and I would be right, but it's very, very close. And I think that cover is just so great with Black Widow, Captain America, and Wolverine all together on that cover by Jim Lee, and I think it's just just highly sought after. Two of the biggest books here in the order. Unfortunately, probably not going to get the 9.8s, but still, I like to see what is the potential here. X-Men 251 at $234. That one, I think it's just so tough. I have lost count as far as how many copies I have of that book, and none of them are close to a 9.8. Just a tough book to get. And Wolverine 17, surprisingly, only $128 in a 9.8. That is the Wolverine 17 by Byrne, and then the Wolverine 27 by Jim Lee, more at $184. And again, I was taking a chance, $12.32 to acquire Wolverine 17 and $14.32 to acquire Wolverine 27. I still feel like great books to own, and I feel like I got them at a good price. Now, I do know that I graded Wolverine 8, and so I just want to put in the actual grade just to see, what in the ballpark is a Wolverine number 8 from 1989 in a 9.0, so that I can do some comparison here. And it's $57. Looking at that now, would I pay $50 for Wolverine 8 in a CGC 9.0? Maybe. It's a very popular book. It always, because of the color scheme and everything, with the blue background, it really pops. So I feel like, man, as prices continue to adjust themselves, that might be something I consider, as looking at some of these books in a little bit lower grade in a 9 or a 9.2, because it looks like as the 9.8 prices are falling, just like the rising tide raises all boats, when the tide drops and goes back out, so do the rest of the books. Now, I did check in that Wolverine number 8 in a 9.2 is selling for about $100, a little bit over $100. And so there is a big jump if I were to get that book. I feel like I graded it harshly but accurately at a 9.0. But I think there are some creases that if those could come out, I do feel like that would be a 9.2. And then it kind of makes sense that book should be graded. I'm already invested for what it is. Then to pay pressing fees and grading fees, it still would be less than if I were just to buy a 9.2 outright. And it's some of these cases where you're thinking about it and it's like, well, should I just buy the slab? Well, if you don't own the book, then yes. I feel like in those cases, if you don't own Wolverine 8, and you don't really care so much, you're not really particular about the grade, and 9.0 is a high grade in your mind, a great entry point into that book. Get it for around 50. I saw like it was sold recently for $49, so I feel like that's a pretty nice price for that book, especially if you have a lot of other 9.0 slabs, and you might want to consider that and kind of have them all nice and uniform. So if you're not necessarily fixated on a specific grade and you don't own the book, then by all means, if you want to own the book slabbed, of course, you could always just keep it raw. But if you are looking at preserving and having your collection somewhat curated through grading, there are many cases where it just makes sense to buy the book already graded. But the way that I look at it is I'm already invested in it for some percentage, maybe 30% of the FMV. So I may as well add another 30% to hopefully have that 40% of margin value that I'm putting into my collection. Now, that's not always the case. There's risk, obviously, with grading. So there's always going to be, there's risk with buying, risk with screening the book yourself. Did you catch every defect? Do you know how to grade? Are you accurately cataloging this book with a specific grade and understanding the impact to your collection in that regard? Lots and lots of points of failure as you go from taking out your money to buy the comic all the way to having it slabbed and preserved in a high grade / investment grade. And it's just a matter of going through those different points and making them as painless as possible. Thanks for watching. Happy collecting, and see you next time. So let's go over those numbers. So let's go over those order. So let's go. Oh,